welcome back to another video. I want to get into dual rigs, dual amplifiers, because basically I've been using a wet dry wet rig for a while, and it's great, but I feel I want to make something. I wouldn't say more compact, but more usable and more kind of like a neat solution. So I want to try the whole dual rig thing. I've always been torn between like the Mesa sound and the Marshall, kind of like going back and forth. So why not do why not use both? So yeah, we're in my kind of like storage locker. Let's flip the camera and look at what I have. So I have one rig here. This will do as a Marshall. In this case, I do have a super lead there from 73, but the whole idea is to have one rig, kind of like the Marshall Plexi sound, and then have a Mesa Mark sound. This is a Mark IV revision A. So the problem when doing a dual rig is you can encounter noise, hum, ground loops, and stuff like that. So yeah, what you want to do is you need to isolate the two amplifiers. The ground must never be shared. So the easiest way to do this is to use a splitter, because I want to go into the front end of the amps from the same effect. I'm going to be pushing them with the same effect, whether it's a tube screamer or a compressor that boosts the signal. So after that, I want to use a splitter, and that splitter needs to isolate one of the outputs with a isolation transformer, so the grounds never actually meets. Like the stupid way of doing this is just to like cut off or isolate the ground on your power cable. That would be just stupid and dangerous. So I'm going to isolate the signal ground instead. And while I'm at it, I'm going to be building like for a pedal board. I have been using my wireless rack in the past, and inside this I built a dual stereo delay, analog delay, built on the PT2399 circuit. It's a fairly generic, but it sounds really good, very analog and nice when used in stereo. So I want to put something in a box to go with the pedal board, and also like a small. I already have the transformer. It's a Lundahl transformer used in the Swedish radio actually before. So I want to make a splitter from that and do a isolated delay to go with that. And I don't know how this video is gonna turn out, but maybe you already heard the result. I don't know, but this is like me explaining what I'll be doing in this video. It might be quite long, this video, and messy, but anyway, the goal is to start using a dual rig, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, you can try just using a Y splitter, but the chances are you're gonna get ground noise. I mean, if you want to be using this when playing out, I mean, you're gonna encounter this at least 50% of the times. So I want to do this as good as I can, and I want to go back using a pedal board for more control. And yeah, so let's go to the build part. Okay, so let's look at all the small parts here that I'm be using for this build. So just as my my rack unit I have done in the past, I'm using the same type of delay. It's a delay based on the PT2399. It's and I have like tweaked all the values on the capacitors to my liking to get the a slightly darker delay, and yeah, what else? Well, I don't think there is anything else with this. It's a pretty standard circuit, and it works great. I like it. It sounds like a really cool analog delay. So yeah, I have two of these for the stereo pairs, and I also have the box will be a 1550M box. I made all the holes and prepared it. Right now I'm not going into like excruciating details in this building all this. I mean, if you build a PCB or like a lab card or whatever you call it before, you know how to do that. Otherwise this build might not be for you. So I mean, I'm just showing how I did this, and we're gonna listen to this later on also. So I don't want to make this too long. So I have holes for the pots, left side and right side. I have the foot switch and a LED in, left, right, and out, left and right, and also two power jacks, because I want this build to be as isolated as it can be. That's why I'm basically why I'm building this. I have other delays, stereo delays, but the problem with those when you're using a dual rig is that no matter how you do, at least on the ones I have, the grounds are always connected, so you're gonna get that ground hum. Well, you might get that, and I want to eliminate any source of hum, so I'm building this isolated left and right delay. So two power sources, and you can see that the ins and outs are isolated, so they don't touch the chassis at all. Okay, so one issue I encountered when doing this like dual effect pedal, usually if you have two sides, you get two foot switches for one of each side. I want one foot switch to turn on both sides, so that a regular foot switch, like a 3-pole 3D PD, I'm almost confusing those, but a 3-pole switch won't really work. You need at least 4, and there are foot switches with 4. They're called like 4D PD, I guess. But I also want to turn on the LED, and that would require like a 5-pole switch, and I haven't really seen those. I know in some like extreme cases you can get like a 6-pole, but I mean anything over like 4 poles, you're better off using a relay. So I can get away with just using a very basic, cheap, like a on-off type of foot switch. This is taken from a Marshall, old Marshall foot switch. So I mean, there's no signal going through this, so it can be as basic as possible. And then run each side to the relays. I'm going to show you how to hook that up later. Basically, what you're getting is a 4-pole switch, and then I'll just run the LED one like on this one. So when you turn that on, the LED and the relay both clicks. So it's a very simple operation. Yeah, and all the pots for the build. I'm thinking delay, like the time. On one side, I'm using a 100 ohm, 100k ohm pot. This is usually for this build, for the PT2399, it's most commonly to use like a 50K, because the higher the resistance, the longer the delays, and after like 50K, it might start to sound like a bit weird and synth-like. But I do want to have the option to push it just a little bit further, maybe up to, I don't know, 70 kilo ohms. That will be your equivalent to maybe 700 milliseconds. Because I do want the ping pong, or like the bouncing effect here. So so I want one side to be a little bit longer. So delay and maybe your feedback. This is come on. This is your volume, and this is the mix and volume on both sides. So yeah, without any more talking, let's get to assemble this. It might be a tight fit, but I've done some measurements and it should work. And then we'll listen to it and see how it sounds like in a real amp. Okay, so just before I'm about to solder everything in and make all the connections, I want to just mark out the pots because you're flipping this back and forth, and also input and output side. So I'm just gonna put in on this side because everything is like flipped. So after a while, you know, kind of lose track of that. So this would be your delay, how long the delay is. This is your feedback, how many repeats, volume, and a mix. So okay, so that's marked out for both sides. I've also like bent the terminals that needs to be bent, and see, I've done that. I isolated the wall there because I thought it was a bit too close. The board, I think it's going to be a tight fit. Definitely a lot of things going on in this box, but I think it's very doable. So I think the boards are going to live just on top of the pots, basically. There's just enough clearance on the height, and if I have the ins and outputs jacks rotated like that, it clears the board. So I'm thinking I do want to be able to like service this. So I'm bending the wires so I can then flip the boards up later. Hopefully that will work. And then yeah, so, and then there's the relay too. There's a lot going on here. I mean, I have the relay and the power and stuff. I'm thinking about so I'm powering the relays from one of the sides. I'm hoping that won't affect like introduce any noise or so. If that's the case, I'll have to figure that out. So I'm thinking about like rotating the switch to one side to get clearance on one side, and then do like one, let's say that's the left one, going into that relay, and this going into this relay, and then I'm bridging these two pins. So when the relay is off, the signal is just being looped and then to your output, and the same here. But when it's on, this is your send and this is your return pin. So effects, that's your input on the delay, and then coming back from your delay here, and then yeah, that's the same. For power, I mean, there are lots of ways to do this, and I'm just gonna go with a safe bet. So I'm putting them all in parallel. So the LED, the two relays in parallel, with a safety diode on the relays, both relays. Hopefully that's okay. I mean, yeah, we'll see when it's done. I haven't even tested the boards, so this is a bit scary, but I mean, usually they work fine, and I've inspected all the traces and double checked everything, so that shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, let's start. I think I'm gonna start installing all the pots. I mean, put the board in, because I still have enough room for activities down here, and then do the signal path to and from the relays, and lastly wire up the power. Okay, so I have all the pots wired up, and hopefully it will fit later on. Off camera, I also wired up the relays, as you can see here. So it's a bit messy here, but those are quite small. But you can see the bridge there and the power thing going on there. The two diodes and in and out, and then all that's left there is send and return for each relay. So yeah, let's continue. Okay, so all the switching is done. In and outputs are hooked up, and I am going to install the power here, like so, and then connect all these grounds. The positive for so this side controls, well, gives power to the relays and the LED right there, and that side only pretty much powers well, it only powers that side of the delay. There's a ground going from both mix pots there. So yeah, let's do that, and then just push the boards down. Or actually, I wanna try it first like this, so I can fix it if anything happens, and then finally just, yeah, connect these to these pins here, and then we're good to go. All right. All right, so it's almost done. So I wired up all the ins and outs, and it was it was kind of fiddly, but it's turned out okay. And the power there, I had to glue them to the chassis there, put some heat shrink on the connectors. Otherwise, I mean, it looks good, and there's plenty of room for the boards. I hope. The wires are quite stiff, but they're really good quality copper, very soft but fairly thick copper single core wire there. So let's quickly look at my second build in this kind of like dual rig series. This is a very simple build, like minimal amounts of parts. I found this just like locally. I actually live not too far away from Norrtälje, Sweden, and that's where they make these Lundahl transformers. They are fairly known worldwide to be really good quality and yeah, very well made. This is an early version. It's been in the SR stands for Swedish radio, like Swedish radio and television. So this is a line transformer, SR501, and it could be used as a isolation transformer, which I'm going to be using it as today. So basically, the two sides are equal. I believe this is 600 ohms, both primary and secondary. Let me show you just the schematics that I draw. Okay, so this is the quick drawing I made of this build. I'm using a 1590A box. And of course, when I made the measurements, I of course did the outer measurements. So yeah, this box looks a little bit bigger than it will do later, but it actually fits, so it's all right. So here you can see the transformer, the SR501, and basically what I'm using are just the two ends. Like I said before, they are equal, so like 600 ohms, both primary and secondary. So yeah, what I'm doing here then is I have the inputs. So I'm gonna run the hot side, the tip, to pin 1. Pin 1 is input positive, and the ground side goes to input negative. So just input there, and for one of the outputs, I'm just bridging it basically. So that's going straight to one of the outputs. The other output, which is lifted, goes like this. So Let's see here. So out positive goes to your positive, the tip there, and the negative to your ground. Basically, I do have the option here to use an XLR if I want to be if I'm going to be using this as maybe a line box for a microphone preamplifier, but I don't think I'm gonna build a separate one because I have two transformers like this, so I'm not gonna squeeze this into this build. It's just gonna be the TR the TS connectors. So yeah, and then your ground pin basically goes to the chassis, and that's basically it. So it's very straightforward. I'm posting the schematics up here also, so you can look at it at say a schematic. The pins apply to this transformer. You can do this build with many other transformers. I just happened to find two of these locally, so I just had to pick them up. All right, so let me just put these in and show you how it will look, and then I'm gonna solder it in. All right. Okay, so this is how it's how the layout is. You can see the transformer is almost like custom made for this box. It's just it's pretty cool. Input and just your straight outputs, they are both grounded, so they're not isolated. The isolated output would be this black one. It never touches the chassis, and so the output pins goes to your secondary winding there. So yeah, let's just take a few seconds and solder this up. All right, so this will be like a first test of this dual rig. I want to use my Mark IV. The plan is to use my Bogner Helios Eclipse, but the Victory here is what I had today. It is, I'm not going to say similar, but it's kind of the same vibe. So I'm choosing these two today, and this is just a test. First of all, to test the splitter, my isolation transformer, but foremost my delay here, my dual delay, and I have everything on, and it is extremely quiet. The hum, I don't know if you can hear that slight hum. That's from the Mark IV, and it kind of always does that, even if you're running it by itself. So I'm very happy with that. If you haven't seen the entire video, this is a dual delay that I built, an analog delay, which is the two sides are totally isolated from each other. It has even got two power, so they never even interfere. And what I'm gonna try out today is this is a very cool 4-knob compressor that I'm gonna be boosting these 2 amps with. So in this cabinet, this is for the Victory, kind of like the Marshall flavor. I have 2 vintage, I mean pre-rolla, really vintage greenbacks from like the mid 60s. That's a whole different story, but yeah, we'll do that some other time. But it's these two has a really cool story behind them. On the bottom there, I have 2 Philips, like vintage early 70s. I think they're called G8 G8H. I'll have to Google that, but they are kind of like the same same feel, and I really like the combo there. The greenbacks takes the lead. I mean, that's the sound you're basically getting, and you get some bottom end from these two, so really cool. The Mesa Boogie goes into a also a mixed cabinet. So I have two vintage 30s like so in an X pattern, and I have two G12 75 like your regular Marshall 80s cabinet, and the vintage 30. So that it sounds very cool with the Mesa Boogie. So the signal path here is I'm coming in tuner, noise suppressor, and then this is the only thing that lives front end. I haven't even hooked up my tube screamer yet. So that goes into the splitter, and one output. I think the straight output today runs to the input of my Victory, and the isolated output runs into the Mesa Boogie. So I'll try to flip that later on. That shouldn't make a difference. And then from both amps, I run send from each amp into the dual delay and out to the same amp. So I don't want to mix. I could, if I want, mix the preamp with the other amp's power amp. I mean, you can go crazy with that, but today it's just straight back to that amp. So yeah, this setup needs to be like heard in the room. So I'm not even gonna bother with miking this up today. This is just a quick test. And I mean, even if I mic'd it up, it's not gonna blow your mind. I mean, I could just double track this and have the same effect, or put a stereo delay in later. So, you know, this is to be heard in the room. So I'm just gonna put you up here and we'll see what happens. With Mesa. Be waiting for with the delay. You can hear a slight bump in noise, but it's so quiet, so I won't even hear it. So yeah, let's see this.